the director of the Oregon Documentary Film Festival. We have our summer 2022 event coming up at the Clinton Street Theater tomorrow on August the 21st, Sunday, and we are excited to screen so many great films, one of those being Indestructible, which is nominated for the Best Director Award. I'm joined by the director, Jen, today. Hey, Jen, congrats.
Thank you, and thanks for including us in your festival.
Yeah, great job on this. I mean, just a powerful piece. The judges were attracted to just the way you structured this film, the journey, the story. I'm not going to give away the details, but I just am letting you know that there were compliments all across the board. Not a bad score or bad scorecard in the house. The judges really respect your work.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. So please put the synopsis in your own words. Tell us, what is the audience going to be seeing tomorrow in Oregon?
So Emily is now a 34-year-old woman who has been through a lot. When she was 8 years old, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor, which where we live in Salt Lake City would have been very easy for her to get treatment. We have a really great children's hospital, but her family was also a member of a polygamist sect of the offshoots of the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, offshoots called the Kingstons. They have a lot of names, but basically it's a polygamous group, and her parents were not able to get her immediately the medical care that she needed because they had to ask permission, and they were told to do other things to not get medical treatment, but they had to make a choice. So they chose to get her medical treatment, and then eventually the family ended up, I don't want to give the whole thing away, but they're not in this group anymore. And so Emily decided at some point recently that she wanted to shave her head, and she wanted to cut her hair and make a wig and give it to a kid. But instead of giving it to one of those organizations that makes wigs for kids, she wanted to pay for it herself. And I ran into her because she is the medical assistant for my pediatrician. So she told me this, and she said, "Hey, can I get you to help me find somebody to make a wig?" But I was like, I kind of want to make a documentary about you. So that's what happened, is that she's like, well, you better hurry up because I'm going to shave my head in 2 weeks at my sister's house. So I said, well, I need to get some interviews with you in front of that. I need to get a few interviews first to find out some more background, and then I'll just go and shoot this head shaving thing. And yeah, that's kind of it. It was an interview, a long interview, and then she shaved her head. And what I didn't know going into this was that she was inviting her many siblings. I think she has 10 siblings and her parents to this, and that they would all be a part of it, and that they would also all tell stories about their childhood and their experience in this religious organization that was super controlling, and their story of getting out. So the story ended up being way more than just one kid's medical struggle, and the fact that she's still here and thriving, and that her whole family is thriving, and that their whole family is really basically indestructible. And that's where the title came from.
Wow, it sounds like you got a lot more than you bargained for when you started this. It just sounds like it just unpacked.
I did, and the thing is, you know what? As a filmmaker, I've made a bunch of small things, but this one I knew it was going to be significant. But when I went in, you know, I had a whole plan of how I was going to light and how I was going to shoot, where the camera was going to sit, and who I was going to mic. And when I got there, there were children and dogs and beers and just mayhem. And I didn't realize all these people were going to talk. So I ended up having to just put a microphone on top of the camera and just chase the story around the room. And then later on, when I considered re-interviewing some of the people, I realized that their interviews and their commentary came so from the heart, and also from the moment. A lot of them remembered things as we were filming that came up and talked about them. And there's no way I could have captured that better the second time, because it was just so natural the way it came out. So I decided to go with that.
I was going to ask you, what it is you learned. I mean, I had a chance to work on years and years of documentary work, as an audio engineer and as a field producer throughout my career. And there's just something about being embedded. It's like that certain level where the camera when people relax a little bit, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm not going to be on a show. At first they're like, I'm going to be on a show. I'm going to say everything a certain way. And then people seem to relax. And I remember moments like about what you're talking about. What did you learn just from the production of this story?
Oh wow, so much. um, you know, on one hand, I think maybe not knowing what I was getting into. Again, I think a lot of the reactions I got were probably more natural.
Hmm.
Um, I think I had a couple of GoPro cameras too that I actually handed to children in the room and said, "Here, go just go film around." And I didn't end up using any of the footage because unfortunately they were children with action cameras and they were not it wasn't great footage, but I tried that. I think I would have had a second camera. Would have been great to have a second person. I think part of it was, I my next project doesn't look like this, so I can actually have a shot list and I can have takes. I mean, this one there was one take. That's it. When you're filming somebody shaving their head, you don't get to do a second take. Can't put the hair back on.
Yep.
So I don't. If I shot something like this again, I think I would probably bring a second person with a second camera and a second
Mhm.
microphone because we couldn't put microphones on people because there were too many people. It would have just there would have been interference, there would have been feedback. Maybe I would have paused the conversation and said, "Hey, quick, can I mic you?" Um, but I got kind of immersed in the moment, and I think they were too. So I don't know if I could have changed what I did with this film, but it will make me think a lot harder about what I might encounter when I show up to do something else like this. I might think about a lot more things.
Well, what's next for you after this project? And I know it's got a festival run going, and maybe that's what's next. But what else are you working on?
So this was actually going to be the second thing I worked on. I've been kind of working with a couple of men in my community who have a great story to tell about basically a very similar theme, coming out of a very high demand religion and coming out of the closet at the same time. Uh, it's it's going to be a little bit more organized. I'm going to be able to have a little bit more control over, if something doesn't come out exactly like they wanted, I can do a second take because
Mm.
nobody's shaving their head. But it's kind of a similar theme. I'm kind of fascinated with the people who are brought up in a certain situation that's restrictive and have the courage to get out of it. I find stories of people who are able to overcome odds pretty fascinating. And so that my next project will kind of be along the same theme.
All right, very cool. Well, this has been great. I appreciate your transparency and all this, and going through this project. Again, congrats. Your nomination, being nominated for Best Director, is a huge honor, one of the highest honors that we have in our festival. So that's a testament to you and your team and the work that you put into this.
Thank you so much. And I just want to give a little shout out and appreciation to the judges who sat through so many of these films. And it was it's such an honor to be nominated for Best Director. I was trying to rack my brain about how did I really direct? But I guess in a movie like this, it meant that I just picked where I stood and then edited. but so it's a real honor, and I just wanted to say thank you. This is such a friendly, wonderful festival, and it's our first one, so it's
Oh
going to be
wow,
extra special. Yeah, we've been in a couple of online festivals. This is our first live festival, so it feels
great.
extra special to be part of the Oregon Documentary Film Festival.
Well, the magic of directing and what the judges are looking at is it's really what you chose to put into this story, these elements you chose to give the viewer a story from the beginning to the end. Um, that was engaging, that put us in a world that we don't normally go to, that gave us an opportunity to peek into the lives of people that and experiences that we may never have, and to see something, just to see a story take place. The way you put it together, was really important. It's not just shooting and editing, but it's the way you became embedded and the elements that you chose to pull out of the story and put together on film. It's just very, very impressive. You're very humble, but you did a great job. And whether it's just talent or hyper focus and hyper detail oriented, whatever it is, whatever it came down to, the end result was very good, and that's what the judges are recognizing.
Wow, thank you. And I did have I started out in high school with the intention of making some films, but it was a different time. It was a time of VCR tapes and and very linear editing and one chance to get it right. But what really like lit a spark for me was that I had a teacher who was extra special. Mr. Jim Maris, he was a very young teacher when I first was in school. And then I studied it in college, but then I completely got away from me. And I did a million other things before finally meeting Emily and just deciding that this is the person that's going to be my documentary that I'm going to make, my first one. And I couldn't have asked for better people to be the subject of my first movie because they really were into it too. They really wanted this story to be told.
Well, I think you're the only person in this world that at that moment was ready to tell that story. So excellent work. And it's great to hear about, your journey. And, not everybody just wakes up and goes to film school and pops out a director and goes to Hollywood. It's sometimes it's a journey for people, but those experiences make your work different. Everybody's work is different. That's what makes these film festivals so interesting. That's what makes these subjects so interesting. And these stories, there's just so many walks of life, so many different takes. I hope you get a lot out of the live experience. Virtual, it's a time we had to go through. We never quite did the virtual thing. We always kept the drive-in theaters and things like that during COVID. There's just something I believe in about seeing the audience reaction, watching and having the out-of-body experience of watching your own film as an audience member. You're so familiar with this footage and every cut and every cue and everything involved in this footage. You are so attached to it. And this festival will allow you, and look at the faces, when you see those smiling moments, when you see those tear up moments, these emotional moments, you see those moments in the crowd, that's going to teach you a lot about your film. And a lot of filmmakers will edit their film immediately after a festival because they'll be like, I have to cut this one part down or whatever. And which is fine. You're supposed to get something out of this experience. And I appreciate you making the time, effort, energy, financially. I know it's a sacrifice to come out and just, attend an event like this during these times. And I just hope you get a lot out of it.
Well, I'm excited to see the other people's films too. I have two little kids. I don't have a ton of time to watch stuff. So this is going to put me in a situation where I get to sit down and watch other people's films who, done the same thing I did. And I think, making films is a lot more accessible now than ever. Because I think, people can get their hands on decent enough equipment without, having to spend a budget of hundreds of thousands of dollars to just get something on film. So it's a good time. It's a good time to be alive for that. So I'm excited to see what everybody else did.
For sure. All right. Well, I can't wait to talk to you about it. We'll have to talk a little bit after the festival and then find out how it went and find out what you liked. And, again, every one of these experiences is it's just a lot of fun. It's really different from the normal cinema experience. So hope you get a lot out of it.
Only one more day.
I know.
Half a day.
Half a day. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I appreciate it. We're looking forward to the screenings.
Thank you so much, Michael.